Hi everyone. Welcome back. It's nice to see you all again. Today, we are going to cover the very first lesson about relative clauses, also known as adjective clauses in English. So, what are relative clauses? Well, relative clauses are clauses beginning with questions words, who, which, where, etc. They are used to modify nouns and some pronouns, to identify people and things, or to give more information about them. For example, this is the book which my teacher recommended. Which my teacher recommended is a relative clause that modifies the noun, book, before it. She is the teacher who taught me music at school. Who taught me music at school is a relative clause that modifies the noun, teacher. We are looking for a place where we can spend our holiday. Where we can spend our holiday is a relative clause that modifies the noun, place. Relative clauses can also be introduced by that. For instance, English is the subject that I like best. In which, that I like best is a relative that modifies the noun, subject. Is he the player that scored the only goal for our team? In which, that scored the only goal for our team is a relative clause that modifies the noun, player. In this video, we are going to study relatives clauses that are introduced by relative pronouns. When who, whom, which, that, whose are used to introduce relative clauses, they are called relative pronouns. Look at the chart below. As you can see, who, which, and that can be the subjects of verbs in relative clauses. Whom, which, and that can be the objects. Whom refers to people. Which refers to things. That can refer to both people and things. And whose is a possessive relative word used as a determiner before nouns. It replaces possessive adjectives, his, her, its, their, and so on. First, let's study the examples of relative pronouns that refer to people. 1. Relative pronouns acting as the subjects of verbs. Take a look at two separate sentences. The student is very good at chemistry. He is talking to the teacher. We'll use the second one as a relative clause to modify the noun, student. He in this clause is the subject. So, the two sentences can be written as one, with a relative clause. The student who or that is talking to the teacher is very good at chemistry. Two. Relative pronouns acting as the objects of verbs. Again, look at the two following sentences. The man is very kind and helpful. You met him at the gate. we'll use the second one as a relative clause to modify the noun, the man. Him in this clause is the object. So, the two sentences can be written as one, with a relative clause. The man whom, or that, you met at the gate is very kind and helpful. Three. Relative pronouns acting as the determiners before nouns. Let's study the two following sentences. The students were awarded the first prize. Their performance was great. As in the examples above, we'll use the second one as a relative clause to modify the noun, students. There in this clause is determiner, or possessive adjective. So, the two sentences can be written as one, with a relative clause. The students whose performance was great were awarded the first prize. Now, let's study the examples of relative pronouns that refer to things. 1. Relative pronouns acting as the subjects of verbs. Look at the following examples. The bookstore sells a lot of good books. It is located on Park Street. We'll use the second one as a relative clause to modify the noun, bookstore. It, in this clause, is the subject. So, the two sentences can be written as one, with a relative clause. The bookstore which, or that, is located on Park Street sells a lot of good books. 2. Relative pronouns acting as the objects of verbs. Again, look at the two following sentences. The book is fascinating. I bought it at that bookstore last week. We'll use the second one as a relative clause to modify the noun, book. It, in this clause, is the object. So, the two sentences can be written as one, with a relative clause. The book which, or that, I bought at that bookstore last week is fascinating. Three. Relative pronouns acting as the determiners before nouns. Here are the two sentences. The house was built in the 19th century. Its owner has moved to another town. As in the examples above, we'll use the second one as a relative clause to modify the noun, house. Its, in this clause, is determiner, or possessive adjective. So, the two sentences can be written as one, with a relative clause. The house whose owner has moved to another town was built in the 19th century. Well, before we call it a day, there are 3 more points you should know. Point number 1. Instead of using whose, we can use of which or that of to refer to things. The most common word order is noun, followed by of which, or that of. However, of which, followed by a noun is also possible. Compare the following 4 ways of expressing the same idea. He's made a film whose name I've forgotten. He's made a film the name of which I've forgotten. He's made a film that I've forgotten the name of. He's made a film of which I've forgotten the name. Point number 2. We do not normally use nouns, followed by of whom, in a possessive sense. For instance, I met a girl whose dress was lovely. Not, I met a girl the dress of whom was lovely. Point number 3. When relative pronouns, whom, which, that, act as objects of the clauses, they can be left out. This usually happens in spoken English. For example, the movie which, or that, we saw last night was really exciting. We can say, the movie we saw last night was really exciting. The boy whom, or that, you've just talked to is my cousin. We can say, the boy you've just talked to is my cousin. Okay, we've just covered the first lesson about the relative clauses. I hope you'll find this video useful. If so, share it with your friends to help them improve their English too. I'm Mr. Long, your English helper. Goodbye and see you in the next video.